there's something that comes up, let me know. This week, so today we have creating urgency to buy at 11. I would recommend you go to that. Shoni's a great instructor, and it's all about buyers market. So creating urgency with buyers. Right now, a lot of buyers are like, oh, I'm going to wait till the market drops or whatever, right? This is a way that they're going to teach us how to handle that and basically be prepared and create a sense of urgency with buyers. We also have Ignite tomorrow, which is capture leads on social media. So for those who don't know, Josh, he's played many roles here, but he was at one point our tech trainer, and right now he's the admin for Peter Morkel's team, one of the bigger teams in the office. What's up? He's a whiz when it comes to marketing. That's what his degree's in, and he spent the last 5 years in real estate focused, not even on selling real estate, literally just the marketing aspect of it. So he's very good about teaching like best practices for social media and just different ways to generate leads for yourself. So I would go to that class as well. Next week, we got obviously Huddle, 9:15 or 9 a.m. to, I don't know why it says 9:15. Anyways, 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on Huddle. We have a couple of Ignite classes with Marcy Hess. She's awesome. Susie Clyde and Jordan Kill, all top producers. Generally doing Transaction Tuesday. We've got Leverage Your Way to Success. So if you guys aren't familiar with this is a class you could go to for future reference, but something we've done as a brokerage recently and that's become super popular in the industry is to hire what are called virtual assistants. So Ritz, he's like, I don't know if you've seen Iron Man, he's like Jarvis, right? So that's something cool because in the future you guys could also hire out a virtual assistant, someone that works out of another country, and Ritz and the whole team over there are super skilled people. And then Shift next week is our last tactic, Bulletproof the Transaction. Clay Winder owns and runs the largest team here at KW, and he's a solid guy, so great to learn from. I'd recommend going to that. But let's jump into what we came here for. Let's talk about listing presentations. So who would like to be my pretend seller? All right, cool. So we're going to jump into two things. This week, we're going to talk about the actual presentation I built for you guys. Next week, we're going to talk about best practices. So it's going to be kind of a two-part training. Today, we're going to go over just the presentation, how I would present it to you if you were my client. And I'll kind of just spitball. You guys are welcome to ask questions, but we'll talk about best practices as far as the presentation is concerned, some basic scripting that I use. And again, I'm not expecting you guys to walk away today like, okay, I'm going to go give the exact same listing presentation Riley does. I'm just giving you a bird's eye view. What I'd recommend is that you then take the time to, this is available to you, brand it to yourself, read through it. I've built it. So even if you don't know what you're talking about, you can literally just read it verbatim and it's going to give you the words, but I'm also going to just explain to you my transitions and everything else in between. And then I'd recommend you partner up either with me or another agent on the team and practice it at least once a week. You don't want to practice on, we like to say, you don't want to practice on money. Don't go practice on your clients. Take time to work on it first. So when you go to get your clients, then you're obviously more skilled and prepared. So this is my guide. So I'm going to pretend you're my client. So so normally this is what happens, right? You go to meet with the seller. I was just going to give you kind of like the bird's eye view, what it takes to get to this step. So obviously you set an appointment, you go meet with the seller. I normally have the seller give me a tour of the home. So I'll go walk around the house and say, hey, show me things that are important to you. I'd love to get familiar with the floor plan, everything else. And then you always want to establish your territory, which means you want to go, I usually go set my stuff at the kitchen table. I'm like, hey, can I set my stuff on your kitchen table? Cool, we'll come back here later. You want to be in control. I hate that word, but like you want to kind of direct where things are going. And ultimately you want to be able to, they say business happens at the kitchen table kind of thing. You want to eventually establish the fact that you're returning there to then be able to present information to them, right? So you're going to go set your stuff down, go walk the house, and we're going to sit down together. Your name's Jane Doe today. That's right, I'm just joking. But hey, this is my guide to sell your property. So I just quickly want to show you what it is that I actually do when I'm working with you to get your house sold for top dollar and my whole process. Sound good? Yeah. Awesome. So you guys don't have this page. Again, this is my personal listing presentation. You'll notice when you build your listing presentation that yours is identical outside of maybe 1 or 2 slides I've added in myself. But that's the goal. I'm giving you exactly what I use on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So we're all doing the same thing. So it's easy to train you because I know what works and what doesn't, and what to say, what not to say, so on and so forth. So I'll talk quickly about my credentials with my clients. So let's kind of give them a rundown. Here's what my background is. You guys could throw something similar together where you're like, your credentials. I work with the top real estate office out of Utah. With and I'm mentored by the top 20% of agents. Like you could do whatever, right? They care, but they don't really care, right? It's just more for you to kind of establish your foot in the door. So your guys' will just have your contact info. Moving on. So a couple things. I have my team is Right Key Real Estate. So you'll see there's a couple little tidbits that are in here. They're not in yours, but here's how I lead into this. Okay, so really quick, I just want to talk about my personal beliefs and mission. So I say we, but you could obviously change your verbiage in here to I. So, I'll just pretend I'm you. So I believe when I take care of others' needs, I in turn get taken care of, right? So I'm going to provide you with the best service, information, and tools to make this whole process easy for you. My whole philosophy is putting my clients first in every single thing I do. I say this to my clients. You definitely shouldn't initially, but my guarantee is I don't cost the money, I make the money. In other words, I'm going to sell their house for more than they would otherwise be able to make on their own. So when it's all said and done, I added to their bottom line, not took away from it. And then my team's motto is we give you the key to experience real estate the right way. Again, yours is going to be more geared towards putting them first. That's the whole message of this slide, right? So you're going to say, moving on. So how people find houses. So I quickly want to talk about finding your buyer. So we believe that the best marketing plan is one that encompasses areas where buyers are already looking for houses. So back in 2020, 52% of, and obviously I'm usually sitting with them with my computer. So I'm actually going to like go over this with them. Like I'm actually highlighting it almost, but I'm like 52% of buyers found their house from the internet. 29% found it directly from a real estate agent. You'll see over here, there's a bunch of different areas buyers also find houses, things like yard sign or open house, friend, relative, or neighbor, maybe directly from you guys as a seller. So again, the best marketing plan is one that encompasses all of those areas. Our marketing plan is very heavy on internet and obviously marketing to other agents because statistically that's what makes you your money, but it also encompasses all these other areas. So really quick, I just want to kind of tell you what most agents' marketing plan looks like. Most agents are going to use what I call the 3P method. They're going to put a sign in the yard, they're going to put it on the MLS, and they're going to pray it sells for top dollar. I don't know about you, but I think you deserve more for the money you're going to spend to sell your house. What do you think?
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about the meat and potatoes of what I do. So internet marketing, when you list your house with me, we're going to put your house on 1,000+ websites. I like to say every website, every app, everywhere. So no matter where someone's looking for a house in Orem, Utah online, your house will be there, whether that's Zillow, Caldwell Banker, it doesn't matter. It's going to be everywhere we can possibly find it. Moving on, a couple of things we do a media plan. So my listing, but just stopping real quick, my listing presentation is very geared towards not even really about me. I said one slide about me. It's all about them and then what I'm doing for them. It's not even about how to explain this. I'm trying to build so much value by saying, here's one more thing I do. Oh, by the way, my marketing plan also includes this and this and this and this. So by the time it's over, they're like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. Like you do so much because most agents are going to come and say, well, I get great results, but I'm more of a show me, don't tell me kind of person. I'm literally going to lay out the whole plan for them. And I'll tell you what I do to close. So we'll keep going. So when I market your house, we're going to do a media plan. So two things we do is we list your house on KSL and Facebook Marketplace. So believe it or not, these are free. Anybody can put a house on there, but most agents are lazy and choose not to. I don't know about you, but I find myself on KSL and Facebook shopping for stuff all the time. I probably shouldn't. Buyers are the same way, right? Especially with how the market's been the last 2 years. A lot of buyers have been trained to look creatively for houses on different websites. So I want to make sure it's everywhere it could be, especially local classified listings. Another thing we do is targeted advertising. So I don't know, have you ever, talked about Cabela's on your phone and next thing or you talked about Cabela's and next thing you know, you get an ad on your phone for Cabela's. So with Keller Williams, we actually have that technology where if anybody's expressed interest in a house in Orem, Utah, right, we're actually going to pay money to put your house out with an advertisement that will attach to other people's social media and basically follow them around on the internet. So if they're on Facebook, you can see there, they're going to get an ad for your house with the photos, information, and a call to action, which allows them to, if they choose to, schedule a showing for your property. So moving on, unique marketing. So we put on a well-marketed open house, which allows us to create a pressure-free environment for your home. We present our listings to over 100 top agents at our office every single week. So like I mentioned, KW is the top office in Utah. So we have over 100 of the top people in the county, accessible. We can talk about your listing, brag about it, and they're willing to bring buyers to us as well. So additional marketing. We also do high quality professional photography. I do aerial shots, you guys don't. So just say we do high quality professional photography on every home. Over here, I've highlighted what a good and a bad photo looks like. My whole goal is to take your, $500,000 house and make it look like a $700,000 house, because truly your first showing is actually online, right? I want to make your house look so good that people, when they show up, aren't showing up to see if they like it or not. They're just confirming whether it looks as good as it did in the photos, and they're ready to move forward when the time comes. Does that make sense? Awesome. So just want to quickly talk about pricing, and I normally will, ask questions throughout the process. Like a good thing to ask before we move on is, okay, awesome. Is there anything else that's important to you when I market your house that I may have forgot to mention? Why would I say it like that? Versus saying, is there anything else that's important to you? Because if I say that I forgot to mention, I'm more leaving like the door open. That if they say, oh, it's important to me that my agent does an open house every week, or they say, well, I heard that, this other company does this. Oh yeah, that's no problem. We could do that too. You're drawing out any potential objection prior to just breezing through it and then finding out you lost the listing because their sister, brothers, cousins, aunt said they'll do this stupid thing that doesn't actually sell houses, but they thought that was important because they saw it on HGTV or something. Does that make sense? So normally I'll stop and I'll say, great. Is there anything I may have missed that's important to you when it comes to marketing your house? Yes or no? No, that sounds great. Awesome. We're going to talk really quick about marketing your home. Excuse me, pricing your home. So pricing right and attracting buyers. What I've done here is I've kind of illustrated for you the difference between a buyer and a seller's market. And I normally quiz my client because I'm trying to obviously test their knowledge of the market, but I'm also trying to build value in my knowledge. This is an opportunity for you to kind of shine with you being a market expert. So I'll normally ask my clients, okay, if you had to say right now, do you think we're in a buyer or a seller's market?
Pretty even.
Why is that?
Because people aren't buying as fast as they were.
Perfect. So normally I get to, their answer. We'll kind of talk about it, go through that, and I'll say, awesome. So yeah, in the last couple of years, you probably heard the real estate market was pretty hot. Things were, selling in 3 days, and there was, low interest rates and everything else in between. So we're going to talk about what that market looks like. So in a seller's market, what this graph illustrates is pricing your house compared to comparables. So comparables are like the houses sold in your area. So how you price it compared to the houses sold in your area, and also how you price your house compared to condition of those in your area. So you'll see in a seller's market, your margin of error is very low, meaning you pretty much can price it, dang near wherever you need to. And because inventory is low, you're probably going to sell it sooner or later, no matter what, right? Obviously, if you price it above comps, you're going to be out of the market, or if your condition's poor compared to other comps, you're going to be out of the market. But you'll see there's a pretty wide margin here. Now let's talk about a buyer's market, which is what we're quickly moving to. You'll see your margin of error is so low compared to the seller's market, where you've really got to make sure you're pricing it well compared to what's sold near you, and condition wise has to be on par, right? So a couple of things I just want to touch on. A property generates the most interest when it first hits the market. The number of showings is greatest during this time if we price it at realistic market value. And I just kind of run them through the key points here, right? Starting too high and dropping the price later, we'll miss the excitement and we'll also fail to generate strong activity. You got to think it's a momentum-based thing, right? You don't want to be the guy that's, and we'll talk about this in a second on another slide, but you don't want to be the guy that lists your house and then 3 weeks in has to do a price drop. And next thing you know, you're chasing the market down, trying to be desperate for a buyer rather than being the prize up front, right? Many homes that start high end up selling below market value. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Pricing your property competitively will generate the most activities from both agents and buyers. And pricing your property too high may make it necessary to drop the price later, and as well to compete with new well-priced listings. So we're going to quickly talk, and this is where I think you guys should study this, because if you're just looking at this, you're probably like, what is this, right? This is how I explain it. So we got another illustration here that talks about pricing your property. So this is the percentage of the buyer pool, meaning total buyers you're going to be able to touch based on where you price your home, okay? So at market value, you'll see you have about 60% of the buyer pool accessible. I'm just going to say up front, I'm never going to encourage you to price your house 50% below unless it's like, awful. So because someone might see this and be like, well, I'm not going to price my house. That's why I would just say it before they even had to think it. I'm never going to tell you to price your house 50% below, unless it's like a crack house, in that case, probably. And I'm also never going to encourage you to price it 15% above. We want to be somewhere in here, somewhere in that sweet spot. And how we determine that is by looking at what's sold around you and comparing your house to it. So if your house is really rough compared to the ones around it, well, we're probably going to be here or a little bit less. If your house is like pristine, upgraded to the 9, and unique in your area, then obviously we can probably justify listing a little higher. But ideally, we want to be somewhere between this mark so we get the most amount of buyers. So pricing your house competitively, the first 14 days when listing your house are critical, because they say that most offers are received within days 3 to 5 in the last couple of years. And you'll see that ultimately time on market works against you. So if we list it, day 1, and we don't get the buyers we're looking for within 14 days, and we start dropping the price, you'll see that eventually and normally what I'll do to illustrate this, I'll ask my client, I'll say, let me ask you a question. We're out looking at houses tomorrow. You're going to buy a brand new place. And I have two listings for you. I've got the one that just hit the market and I've got a house that's been listed for 45 days. What's your first impression of the one that just hit the market?
One that just hit the market.
Mhm.
I don't know, probably ready,
Right?
ready.
What would you think about the one that's been on for 45 days?
No one really wants it.
Mhm.
Oh,
Would you think that you could get a better deal on the one that's just listed or the one that's been on for 45 days?
if I get a better deal on the longer.
So when a buyer's looking at your home, right, we got them hit the mark, because if we end up being on the market 40 days, and we're just dropping the price over and over again, a lot of buyers looking at it are gonna think this is a bloodbath. We could go in here and, take advantage of the seller, lowball them, and generally, we're not gonna get the excitement compared to that first 2 weeks where it's the newest listing on the block, and we priced it well, it looks great because of the photos and preparation and marketing and so on and so forth. So a couple pricing misconceptions. I actually need to update this because what you paid is not really applicable. I mean, it may be in the next, honestly, actually, I'll leave it because people who are selling that bought in the last year, this is actually important. But pricing misconceptions. So we're going to quickly talk. How is the value of a house actually determined? So the value of your property is determined by what a buyer is willing to pay, what you're willing to accept, and ultimately what an appraiser says it's worth, right? So buyers are going to make their decisions on your house. What's up, man? Buyers are going to make their decisions on your house or pricing decisions on your house based on what's sold in your area. So you may think, oh, my house is worth what I paid, what I need, what I want, what my neighbor says, what another agent says, cost to rebuild today, or what Zillow said. Ultimately, those things are just factors to consider, but they do not determine price, right? I draw that out up front because so many sellers are going to say, well, Zillow says, well, my neighbor sold for. I'll tell you, 90% of the time when your client says, well, my neighbor sold for it, the neighbor's BSing. That's because sold data is not accessible to the public. So the neighbor could have listed their house for $950 and told the, your client, oh, I sold it for $950, but if you actually look, maybe they sold it for $875. Well, that matters. It's, a $75,000 spread that your client's thinking it's here, but it's really here. That's where you have to come prepared, knowing what information do they not have and how do I provide it to them in a way that allows me to be like the guide or the one setting the direction for what's happening here and establishing value for them, right? Because they don't have access to this info. You're the one basically taking the complicated and translating it to the simple for them. And they're going to naturally trust you and want to follow your direction if you can do that in a way that doesn't come across as like salesy or pushy, but more like, hey, I'm here for you. Let me take you under my wing almost, right? So again, it's very important to price your property at competitive market value when we finalize the listing agreement. Why would I put that in there? Like, read that sentence and tell me what stands out to you.
You probably use one, try and get as most of them out of it.
So what I put in there, and that's true, what I put in there, you'll see, you want to plant seeds because the way you talk with your clients matters, right? I'm assuming the seller, I'm saying when we finalize the listing agreement, right? I didn't say if or anything. I threw it in there on purpose. If you said that out loud, yeah. So yeah, when we get this done, when we get your house listed, right? You're assuming. I can't tell you how powerful that is when it comes to sales in general, or just like working with clients, because if you're going and tiptoeing, almost leaving the ball in their court, like, so if I'm good enough, if you know what I mean, that's not the energy you want to have. You want to go in there like, this is what's happening. I'm laying it down. And obviously, if they bring up objections, you handle them to the best of your ability. And if for some reason you guys can't work together because you couldn't handle their objection, or maybe there's something, they didn't like you didn't like them, whatever reason, then that's better to be in that situation than to go into it like, okay, now what? You're the one setting the direction. 90% of people, they will just kind of go with the flow. They're not going to really put up much of a fight. Not that you're screwing them over or anything. I'm just making like a mental picture here. But if you come in with the energy of like, I hope, then like you're probably going to lose most of your listings because they want a professional. They want someone who's confident and competent that's willing to say, hey, I've got this, right? Let's do it. Does that make sense? So have that kind of energy when you go into your appointments. This is a slide I threw in. Again, you guys don't have to do this. I just always like to talk about reviews, reputation. Again, this is another one I threw in results. We're going to just skim past this. When you guys get to that point, when you have a track record, I think it's important to touch on it quickly. Because again, my whole process is initially I quickly talk about myself. The rest of it's about what I'm doing for them. I recap with how it's gone with others to build credibility, because most people are gonna like, it's like keeping up the Joneses kind of mentality. Like, you know, if you hear someone, oh, went and bought a car, well, they're more inclined to buy a car. They know other people have been happy working with me, they're more inclined to feel like they're going to be as well. For you guys, there's a slide in here, which I'll update soon, that has this same kind of layout, but it's comparables. So you guys could actually go through and add your comparables to your slideshow, have the information printed separately, but then you could talk about it. And if they want to dig into it, then you've got it accessible. But then it just looks super clean and professional. Again, I want to make you guys look like, if they knew you're a new agent, you're going to walk in, they're going to be like, wow, I did not expect this. Like, you want to almost like shock them with how prepared you are and how clean all your marketing looks and everything. You're a professional after all. That's why you're here, right? And that's how I'm going to train you. So closing process. So I always like to talk to the seller about the closing process, just to kind of mentally walk them through what to anticipate. So, you know, Mr. and Miss Seller, once we accept an offer, we're going to have up to a 45-day window to close a transaction. Here's what that looks like. So we have disclosures, the disclosure deadline days 1 to 7 or within 7 days. That's where we're going to disclose everything we know about the home to the buyers. We have a form that makes this easy. The title company will also search for any liens on your house, right? Due diligence, that's going to happen within 2 weeks normally. Buyers will have an inspection. It usually takes about 3 hours with a licensed inspector. The thing is, the buyer may ask for some repairs. We can either negotiate to fix them, lower our price, or do nothing. In this market, that's where you set an expectation. Expect the buyer is going to ask for something, and we're probably going to have to help them with something. 8 months ago, having this conversation, I was telling my sellers, we're not going to do repairs. Like 90% of the time, we're not even going to have to, and I'm going to negotiate, you know, to not have to do that. Now it's pretty much inevitable. Like they're going to probably ask for repairs. Financing and appraisal. So days 14 to 28. So usually within 2 to 4 weeks, we're going to have the buyer finish up their loan. What that looks like is the appraiser is going to come through and establish the value of your house. The buyer is going to finish off their loan and submit it to underwriting, where all their loan details will be double checked just to make sure they're ready to close. And then finally, we're going to go settle and close. That's where you sign all the paperwork. A business day later, everything is transferred and you officially move out and the house is sold. Any questions? Awesome. So where do we go from here? Again, this is where I assume that we're doing this. I don't leave it up for interpretation. Obviously, they could still object. They can say, oh, pump the brakes, but that's where you have to learn how to handle objections, which I'm obviously here to help you do. So we can train on that. But I always assume that we're moving forward. So, okay, what happens next? So here's what's going to happen. My team and I, that's what I would say, because you guys have a team, right? Me and the rest of the team. My team and I, we're going to coordinate photography. We're going to make sure you're included with any key deadlines and dates moving forward. So when, you know, photography is going to happen, when we're going to get the house listed, when our first open house is, we're going to lay out that process for you. And then we're going to start pre-marketing it to peers. So we're going to start telling people in our office and in our network about your house. So that way they can kind of create some activity or interest for us before we hit the market. For you guys, these are the 3 Ds of home preparation. Depersonalize. So you want to think model home, right? So you want someone to walk in and be able to see their family or their stuff in your home, right? So maybe don't have the Trump flag or excessive dead animals on your wall. It's like, you know, those are the type of things, like polarizing things. If it's like a family photo, as long as it's not a massive banner, you know, so even then, but it's best practice. For you, deep clean, so your house can never be clean enough. So we just ask that you clean your house and keep it clean throughout the process, just so you have a good first impression for buyers. And then declutter, the less in your home, the bigger it looks. I want you to walk into your house as if you're seeing it for the first time. What would your initial thought be? Are you having to move around things to get into certain bedrooms, or does it feel like it's airy and flowy? Just walk through your house from the eyes of a new buyer and do what we have to do to make sure it's ready to go. So, any questions? Awesome. So let's talk about it. I know I breezed through that. What lessons did you learn? What was helpful in that?
Bringing the energy, like the right energy, like the terminology that you use, like say when you finalize your listing, as opposed to if you choose me to take care of your listing. So that need to work will really help. In my presentation, the confidence that I bring to us, so that they can have confidence in me as their agent, which is what I'm trying to do, is relieve, you know,
Their stress.
the weight,
Yep.
the stress that's on their shoulders. So that's probably the big one for me.
Awesome. Anything else? So one thing I'll quickly touch on, and I should have brought this, but obviously today I was running a little behind because my dog. I normally will have my laptop where I'll present, and then I have a red KW folder. You can pick them up at the front desk, and in that KW folder, I'll have a couple of things. I'll have statistics. So I use statistics to justify what I charge. We can talk about that. I'll just quickly see if I can show you really fast. Oops. Okay, so these are two different months, but let's just pretend they're the same. So what I do in my appointments is I'll actually bring these statistics printed, and I like to highlight to my seller how cheap I actually am to hire, right? Or how inexpensive I am. So what I do is on the MLS, you can pull sales per month report. You basically, and I could show you really fast, but just to make this quick, I'll just explain it. If you have questions, reach out, make a video or something. Basically, you can go on the MLS, you can pull statistics, you do home sales per month report, and you just type in, I want to go back 1 year and I want to look at the stats of this office. So I always pull up Homey and ours because Homey is like the cheapest option to sell your house. Not really. And I like to add up. So it's kind of a play on numbers, to be honest, because this is technically median, not average. But what I'll do is I'll add all of these up and I'll divide it by the amount of months there are, and it'll give me an average. So I think theirs is like 101%. Okay, so I'll write that down at the bottom and I'll literally in pen write it down. And then on our side, I'll do the same thing. And ours is normally like 103 to 104. So what does that tell you? If I have Homey at 101 and we're at 104 percentage wise, and this is a trick question, if you don't know, it's okay. But what does that actually tell you? There's a 3% difference.
Sure.
So what I'm looking at here is if I sell a house compared to Homey, what percentage of the sales price do I usually get for my client? So if they're at 101 and we're at 104, I typically get 3% more for my seller than Homey does. So I have my own personal statistics, but for you guys, when I was new, like, I was 20 years old, like looking like I was 12. This is how I got listings, because I would show up and show them. I would not tell them, I would show them that even if, they hired the cheapest option, they would actually make less money when it's all said and done, because statistically, they're going to undersell your house for 3% less than we would. And then I would, always put it back on them. I always ask them questions that are like, it's a yes question, right? It's like, so I don't know about you, but if it were me, I would rather take the option that's going to make me more money. How do you feel? Right. They're not going to say no, right? And so then if they say, well, I might interview some other people, or so-and-so said they'll charge me less or whatever, you just go back to this. Totally understand. But let me ask you a question. Let me make a statement. Whether I charge you $1 or $100,000, it makes no difference as long as you end up with more money in your pocket because of me. Is that right? They could charge you $1 and make you $50,000, or I could charge you $30,000 and make you $100,000. Which would you rather pick? Because ultimately, what it comes down to is you. It doesn't have nothing. That's nothing to do with what I charge. It has everything to do with what you actually walk away with in your pocket, right? So, I bring a folder, and in that folder, I'll have my comps printed. I'll have stats, and then I'll also have the listing paperwork. You guys can choose to do things digitally. That's totally fine. I've like Becca Summers in the office, she sells like 40 houses a year. She does everything digital, and it works for her. For me, I found that I get way too stressed out if I send a DocuSign, it doesn't get signed like right then. I got to wait for 2 days. I'm sweating if they're going to sign it or not. I'd rather just get it done on the spot and then do everything else digital from there. So I like to bring my contracts, and also, especially for older people, they're going to have questions, or they may use the excuse, oh, we'll look over the email later. We'll let you know if you have any questions. No, I'm going to go through right now with you, because then I can handle it on the spot. And I know I'm confident in my ability to get it signed then, so that there's no second guessing or, we actually decided to interview someone else tomorrow just in case. No, I'm getting it done right then. And if I'm not, I'm making a plan to stay in touch, and also trying to identify. I'm not pressuring them. I'm very casual, but I apply pressure in ways that don't feel like it. I'm never like, hey, like, are you going to sign this right now? No, it's very much just like, I come curious, and that allows me to find out people's objections, their concerns. And I try to handle them on the spot and provide them with that reassurance so we can move forward. So what else? Outside of that, though, that's basically it. Next week, we'll talk about best practices. So once I actually get a listing, what do I do? Or best practices, just generally setting up that process of getting a seller client. But I always like to come over prepared actually, because you never know the personality style of the person you're going to get. You could have the total lay down that's like, oh, I don't care, I was going to hire you either way. And you're like, oh, cool, I could have just saved myself 20 minutes of presenting. But you also have the people that's like, it could be your uncle, and you're like, oh, I know he's going to use me, but maybe he's the most analytical dude ever, and you should have came prepared. Now you lost a listing because you just didn't have the info. So I like to come over prepared, and that also helps me. I would say that confidence comes from knowledge. You don't necessarily have to be the best agent. You just have to know a little more, or be able to communicate the fact you know a little more than the next guy. Because a lot of agents, they just come in and they work with referrals a lot or whatever. So they just kind of assume they're going to get the listing, but they may not come prepared. If you show up and you're, obviously you're new, so you're gonna be hungry and you're probably gonna present that to them, like, they're gonna be able to tell that you're motivated, you're trying to, get your career started, whatever. But if you also then back that up with the knowledge or the preparation of a very experienced agent, they get the best of both worlds, because they know that you're gonna do anything it takes to get it sold, because you don't have 50 other clients you're working with, but you also showed them that you're competent and prepared. Does that make sense? Cool. Any questions? Yeah.
So as far as that slide that said, the marketing to thousands of web pages.
Yep.
Is that something that the transaction team? helps with?
Automatic.
It's automatic, so when you put it on, post your listing on the MLS.
Yep.
It automatically goes to.
It's called, syndication.
Okay, is that something that every agent does?
Um,
You just put it on the MLS?
in KW specifically,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Other agents, it does syndicate other websites, but KW has what's called the KW, I think it's like KWLS, KW listing service. So in, to be dead honest with you, I don't know exactly how it works, I just know it works.
Yeah.
And to them, it doesn't make a difference, because
Right.
you're just, it's kind of like example. And I went to a class yesterday here where they're talking about MOFers, which that's like a KW term, call to actions, basically. So in your marketing, having some form of call to action, like something that makes people want to reach out to you, right? So the Red Sign team, one of the things that they do is, are you guys familiar with what a listing alert is on the MLS? So on the MLS, you can basically set it up. It's dead simple. It's like stupid simple. You set it up so every morning your client gets an email with anything that was listed in the last 24 hours that meets their criteria. Pretty simple. You automate it, so then you don't actually have to go search for that client for houses. You just set it and forget it. You should be more involved in that, but making a point that it's stupid simple. So that's a simple concept, right? The Red Sign team calls it they own it as their own, a see it first program, where they present it as, so in order to find you the very best deal possible, we're going to set it up so every single day we're going to scour the market. We're going to look at every type of listing, whether it's bank-owned properties, foreclosures, short sales, or active listings in the market, and make sure you're the first person to see it. So every morning you're getting an email from us with all the properties we found the day before. How's that sound? How different is that? Is it any different actually? No, it's a listing alert, but their clients perceive value of that as like, I want to work with you just for that. So take the simple stuff that happens by default and spin it in a way that, because it's still valuable to them. I mean, like having your house on 1,000+ websites with us, that's going to be more valuable than the guy that puts a sign in the yard and just lets it sit and is like, whatever, we'll see what happens, right? Because you're still going to be actively working it. That also doesn't even include, none of this marketing plan even included things like if you choose to go knock doors, guess what? If you're a door knocker, throw that in your presentation. Another thing I do is I go knock 100 doors in the area. How much more valuable is that right off the bat? Maybe you're a cold caller. I'm going to call 200 neighbors in the neighborhood the week we hit the market. Or I use something called Slide Broadcast, where I can send a voicemail and a text out to infinite amount of people. I record it once and I just put a list together of people. So every time I have a listing, I send out multiple Slide broadcasts throughout that, because I just don't have the time anymore to make the calls, to be honest with you. If I was new, I would. And when I was new, I would get listings in the neighborhood. I had listings because I would just call the neighbors and go from there. I'm not a huge door knocker myself. So those are all things you can throw in there. You can just add value. Again, you want to just give, and then it's easy to take because you're providing so much more value than what you're taking. Does that make sense? So hopefully that was helpful. Let me just hurry and pop these slides back up. We'll finish up really quick. So I would say in the next week, homework, let's have you guys put together your listing presentations on the Pro Team website. There's a section that talks about marketing presentations. It'll take you to my Canva link, which has the presentation Ritz and I built together. There, throw your photo on, read through it. I would say, twice a week at the very minimum, read through it, get familiar with it, because I'd like for you to go on your first appointment confident as heck. And I'll throw this out here. Anybody who can set a listing appointment and go on it in the next week, I will personally give you $200 to go towards Facebook ads, which should get you probably 50 to 100 leads minimum. So
I think it's specific one for this Friday.
yeah, from the minute I just said that until next Wednesday, when I have to get on a call with my maps coach, if you can go on a listing appointment and take a listing, then
Okay.
you don't have to take the listing, but if you can get a listing appointment and go present,
Yeah.
try your artist.
Right.
Does that work? Cool. Anyhow, current mission. So outside of the homework I just gave you, listing presentation. So again, this is kind of our how you succeed in my program. You got to get your database to a minimum of 200 contacts as soon as possible. Do your lead generation daily. This is like, you could set up the best database and systems and look the coolest on social media and all this stuff. It doesn't matter if you don't have clients. Focus on the basic things that get you far, which again is lead generation. For those who are not familiar, GPS and 411 sounds so complicated. Again, I'm very casual and simple. I'm trying to make things just dumbed down for you guys because I know that I don't want to overwhelm you. GPS is our goal setting sheet for the year. A 411 is what we look at month by month and week by week to establish if we're on track to hit our goal. So I help you set up a yearly goal and a plan, and then every week we check in and look at the week and month sheet to make sure your actions reflect what you're trying to accomplish. This is not for me. If you say I want to sell one house this year, if you say I want to sell 100, if you say you're going to sell one, I'm going to kick you in the butt and try to motivate you a little more. My point is, if you say I want to sell one or 100, that's how I help you put that together. I've got a video I put on Slack, or I can send it to you, that walks you through a basic way to set that up, and we can always make time one-on-one or as a group to work on those things as well. So again, database done, lead generation every day, set your goals. Even if you just come to me and say, here's my goal for the year, help me break it down. I'd rather have you do that. Let's get your goal set for the year and then graduate to group coaching. So group coaching, your requirements to get there are ProU videos done, which if you're a new student, you haven't got access to those yet, you will soon. It's a video series just giving you an overview on things like how to write offers, basic fundamentals for the team, and so on and so forth. Ignite, you have to graduate Ignite. So go to those sessions. You can either watch the videos and give me 5 takeaways per video to graduate, or go to the in-person sessions. And then what's the last thing? Case studies. Case studies are your practice offers. So I want to know, basically by the time I group coaching, what it is I'm taking everything you just learned in a short period of time, and I'm helping you break it down into 3 bite-sized pieces every single week. So you're going to go learn how to write offers, set up your database. You're hungry, ready to go. You're like, hey, I know what I'm doing now. Then I'm going to help you deep dive and say, what are 3 things you could do in the next week to get you business? We're going to get very specific. I'll hold you accountable. I'll help you self-discover, go through that process. And so getting into group coaching, that's where most of the value from the program is. These trainings are very valuable. The videos are very valuable, but the one-on-one time is most valuable because if you show up for me, I will definitely show up for you. And the reason I kind of have it be a privilege to get into group coaching is just so we don't have a mix of everybody where this person's like, how do I set up a database? And this person's over here saying, I went on 3 listing appointments and only took 1 this week. What can I do better? It's 2 different conversations. So the quicker we can get to this, the faster you guys are going to start making money and help people. Make sense? Cool. How's it going? So obviously a couple of you guys are new. You're just trying to get, the wheels turning, get everything set up. But for those who've been here a second, lead generation, any struggles, wins, questions, support needed? No, okay.
Since I switched to focusing more on social media, I've already gotten like 2 referrals in just been a week. So that's been really nice.
Good.
I've been focusing on that every day. Yeah, still that's a success.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Lacking knowledge, information. Is there anything that you guys feel like you have gaps on? Okay. Anyone? Good.
So I'm working on studies.
Mhm.
Completely
They're kind of the same.
Okay, so, I don't know, I'm just gonna ask this.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you write an addendum back for, like, for example, like on case study 3, after write addendum back to extend like the dates for appraisal and financing.
Mhm.
I just don't understand like how to do that. To put that into it better, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're totally fine. That's why we're here, right? There's no dumb questions. I'd rather have you say it and then we can all learn together than keep it to yourself and struggle or feel lost. So in addendum, imagine like you have your contract, and then addendum is like layers. So you're adding things to the contract, right? So in this case, that case, I don't remember the exact case because I didn't write it, it was Jen that wrote it, but let's say you have 2 addenda already. So just to let you know, addendum is singular, addenda is plural, right? It's multiple addendums basically, but properly it's addenda, right? So you have your REPC, your base contract, addenda or attachments to that contract, either changing terms in the contract or adding to. Okay, simple way of looking at it.
So I bought a property a couple months back, and this was before I was an agent. And like we had the real estate contract and it was already filled out, and then we extended something for the due diligence deadline. And so it's basically like once the contract is signed, it's just like adding on to the contract, like Riley was saying.
Yep.
And so instead of sending like all the contract over and redoing everything all over again, you just basically get the addendum and whatever it's for. So the due diligence deadline, extending it, or for appraisal, whatever it is, you basically just fill it out how it needs to be. And then you resend just the addendum and it's added on to everything else that's already.
Yep. So what you would do is you take, so depending on what addendum it is, addendum number 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, right? You would just basically take the addendum sheet, right? You'd specify it's addendum 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever in the top, fill in your client's info. There's the text box, you would just put a 1 period, and you would say, finance and appraisal to be extended to such and such date,
Okay,
and then fill in the signatures, good to go.
okay, that makes
Yep.
sense.
I know it definitely feels complicated, but you're gonna get to the point soon where you're like, do this stuff in your sleep, promise. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, good question. So when you guys get to your case studies too, what I'd recommend is if you get to the point where you're stuck, as these two obviously move through the program, or even Sam, if he's not, have you finished your case studies?
I've got just 5 left.
Cool. So what I was gonna say though is that you could always partner up with somebody else too and try like group homework. Here's the thing. I'm not incredibly strict other than getting it done. Does that mean I want you to copy off for hers to get them done? No, you need to learn them. And I'll know if you didn't take the time to do them because you'll ask the same questions 50 million times over and over again. And I'm like, you should have learned that, day 3, we're on day 50. Does it make sense? So again, take it serious because although we have the transaction team, although we have me to help you, you should want to be self-sufficient, right? The value of this program is that you can't really fail if you show up, right? It's not that I'm necessarily here to do it for you or that Jen's team's here to do it for you, but it's that we're kind of like big brother and big sister helping you guys know that even if you make a mistake, we're going to save you. If you don't know something, ask, right? We're basically just giving you all of our knowledge condensed into whatever time period you're here with us. Does it make sense? And so that's my thought process. So if you guys got to pair up, if you guys like, I would just say use this as a community. Like this is a classroom setting almost, right? So if you guys got to role play together, you guys got to work on case studies together, you want to make phone calls together, accountability, you and Cash, make it a community because that's how we all succeed. And ultimately you are who you surround yourself with. So it's probably better to surround yourself with other hungry agents that are learning so you can keep that energy up rather than go off on your own and feel lost and whatever. So that's the thing too, is like, you guys are always welcome to tag along with me too. If I have an appointment, if I'm making phone calls, like my day-to-day, a lot of my day-to-day right now is focused on the coaching program. So it's not the regular, agent type of thing, but I still do business and I'm happy to include you guys in that. So again, show up for me and I'll show up for you. Just be the squeaky wheel. That's all I can say. So yeah, if any wants and needs come up. So if there's specific things you guys want training on, resources for, support, so on and so forth, let me know. I'm going through and making random videos right now on like how to do Facebook ads, setting up your goals, anything I can think of. I get asked here or there just so it's accessible to you guys. But that's the other thing too, is there are so many, like, I can't even begin to tell you how many resources there actually are. Like right, but that's the thing is that like when I started, it was literally like, go to Ignite, good luck. And Ignite back then wasn't nearly as good as it is now. All I used it as is an opportunity to have a one-on-one with that person that was teaching it. I would just bug the hell out of them basically, which is fine, it worked. You guys legitimately can't fail if you just show up because we've literally almost essentially built your business for you, or said like, you can go on like the rough dirt trail, or I can walk on this nice paved smooth sidewalk to the bank. Does that make sense? Like it's there. I can't even begin to tell you. So just show up, don't make it too hard. If you guys could do one thing every day, it's just talk to people about real estate, do your calls, go knock doors, whatever your lead generation looks like, because that's how you get business, and everything else is a byproduct of that. Just go get clients, you'll have to figure out the rest, right? It's better to do it, commit first and figure it out later is basically what I'm saying, right? But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Any other things you guys need from me right now? So takeaways, work on your onboarding to-do list basically. So getting your videos, education done, stuff set up, and then go build your listing presentation. And I would say start practicing it. Fair? Cool. Well, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for joining me today. Please eat the burritos because I can't, and they're too good to go to waste. No problem.
It's been way longer.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been a long time since I've done the case studies, and honestly should review them because I'm struggling through the process now. So if you have any questions, ask me so that I can figure it out.